in continuing to talk about cycles, eclipses are very interesting. Some very mysterious facts, first of all. It is curious that our moon, for its size and distance from Earth, makes for a perfect size ratio to the sun and its size and distance from Earth. So our ability to have a total eclipse is unique. You can't actually see that with any other planets out there having the same capability. Even weirder, if you take the diameter of the moon and then you measure how many moon diameters it is between the Earth and the moon, you get 108 moons. Likewise, you take the diameter of the sun and you count how many suns diameters are between the Earth and the sun, you also get 108. In almost every mystical tradition that has existed on Earth that interacted with the sky, they would use 108 like beads, like mala beads from Vedic traditions, to demonstrate the sacred connection between the sun and the moon. 108 is a sacred number in many cultures. Like mathematicians also consider it special. Fibonacci had a theory that 108 represented the wholeness of existence. According to Vedic cosmology, 108 is the basis of creation, representing the universe and all of existence. Interesting stuff. Back to eclipses. Now, they are always very inconsistent with their expressions. They come in unexpected, sudden ways and almost always are outside the realm of choice and free will. They are events that are consciousness expanding and out of your control. Hence, we may not know about what is shifting until after the eclipse season is over. And in hindsight, we discover what and how the event or events truly manifested in our consciousness. They truly are wild cards. It could be very positive or exciting, or very stressful and emotional. It could be monumental and significant energy, or have little to no effect on you. This is where you look to the natal chart and see where and how the eclipse will affect you personally. An eclipse involves tracking the two shadows of a celestial object. Astrologers track the north and the south nodes, or shadows, of the moon. In Vedic astrology, they are called Rahu and Ketu. In any given year, we have 2 eclipse seasons, and that is when the sun moves to conjoin one of the lunar nodes. So once it crosses one, 6 months later, it will cross the other one. There is a chance of a third eclipse in a given year, but an easier way to remember this is that if you have a solar eclipse, then you may have a lunar eclipse. However, if you have a lunar eclipse first, you will almost always have a solar eclipse. So when looking at your natal chart, you are looking for what houses or themes of life, along with any planets that are located on the eclipse axis, will affect that day and through the entire eclipse season. The eclipse season is the period of time that lasts from before the 2 eclipse pairs to during and after. So usually about 36 days, but different astrologers subscribe to different time frames for eclipse season. Even more so, an eclipse is just one eclipse in a larger eclipse cycle that has gone on for hundreds, if not thousands of years. So each eclipse is a part of a family of eclipses, and each family has their own set of characteristics that are an undercurrent of what the present eclipse is showing astrologically in the sky in that moment. There is a story going on with a beginning, middle, and end with eclipses. In the book The Eagle and the Lark, a great astrology book on transits, the author likens the study of one individual eclipse to watching a giant hardwood tree grow. Looking at one event on the life of a tree may seem random and unconnected, but you zoom out over 1,000 years and that randomness starts to fade into a larger organized pattern. The ancient Babylonians were actually the ones to discover eclipses in series around 4th century BC. These series were later named Saros cycles, or series. There's a lot of math and qualifications to consider when further understanding this, but however, the big takeaway here is that each Saros cycle produces a solar eclipse every 18 years plus 9 to 11 days. Thank you, leap years. Every Saros cycle begins with a number of partial eclipses near one of the Earth's polar regions. Then the series will then produce several dozen central eclipses before ending with a group of partial eclipses near the opposite pole. You will have around 70 to 72 eclipses in one series, and each series lasts about 1,280 years or so. And we usually have about 42 Saros series running parallel at any given time. So the takeaway? It's really hard to predict and understand exactly what could happen in the world or in our own life when these eclipses take place because they represent delineations in much larger cycles. Well, we have another solar eclipse happening in a few days. The previous solar eclipse in this Saros cycle was on September 22nd, 2006. So there is a connection to what was going on for you back then that is being revisited on some level this time around. The first solar eclipse in this series was April 10th of 1736. So an astrologer will actually look at the chart of that day back then to determine the basis for the whole eclipse series itself as the undercurrent of the eclipse we are experiencing in the next few days. Solar eclipses are typically useful for starting new ventures or projects, as well as maintaining rapid progress. If it helps to understand and identify new goals in life and leaving old patterns behind. So it is a sign of something better coming into our lives. Yet this is through change, and change can be difficult. And eclipses bring these events in order to force us, sometimes against our present will and expectations, to give up things or act in a different way than before. This specific eclipse is happening on the Libra-Aries sign axis, with the new moon, a fallen, debilitated sun in Libra, as well as a combust Mercury, all tightly conjoined in Libra. There's also a slight square to a weakened, debilitated Mars in Cancer. So when we have a new moon, the moon's reflective light is absorbed by the sun. So it is very difficult to see our emotions and our reflections in the world. We have to therefore rely on our gut, our instinct. Mars is the general, the commander who makes decisions. This Martian square to the eclipse brings a bit of friction in order for decisions to be made, yet there can be some patience, frustration, and lackadaisical issues involving your will and resolve to do so. And then the combust Mercury here will also provide the urge to learn, communicate, be curious as to what the situation is and what needs to change. However, whatever you try to do or think your way through this will be limited in its ability due to Mercury's potential being burnt out by the sun. The Libra energy is one of balance, justice, ideals, knowing the cost of doing or not doing something. It is also the natural seventh house, which indicates the overall theme of being about intimate relationships, and that's personal or professional, and how this could be energy that forces you to rethink, start, or end a relationship or partnership. It could mean a renewal or a revision of an existing one as well. The Mercury influence highlights the rewriting or recommunicating the story of the relationship, albeit with some difficulty. Now, Venus rules Libra, so there is a lot of value put on feeling comfortable, heard, accepted, and your ability to enforce proper boundaries, being able to say no to something. It is about being diplomatic when negotiating your needs. It's ultimately about cooperation. So lastly, you consider your own chart. So what house axis does this eclipse happen in your chart? For me, it is happening on the 5th, 11th house axis. This would mean the eclipse, for me, would be about happening with themes regarding to creativity, self-expression, having fun, my social life, my environment, my children, love and romance, hopes, expectations, and dreams that I aspire towards, especially when it comes to the support I rely on from others. Now, the other thing to look for is whether you have any planets in Libra primarily. And are those planets near the degree of the eclipse? Because the closer a planet is to the eclipse, the more intense the effects can be. I have my natal Pluto 1 degree away to the eclipse. So basically, I have some potentially deep, intense realizations to identify that my ego is in charge of. And if I don't properly overcome it, I might just get bashed upside the ego to learn the lesson. So we shall see. A final observation to add, I just happened to look at the eclipse against the birth charts of Putin, Iran, and of NATO, which turns out to have some very conjunct important planets on the eclipse axis. So it will be interesting to see what happens, but considering what happened with the eclipse 2 weeks ago and its effects with Israel and Lebanon, there could be some unexpected escalations of hostilities and relationship issues between and within all these conflicts during October. So I hope you enjoyed this video and you understand a little bit more about the nature of eclipses. So until next time.